Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. This is Franz Sidney today with an amazing guest all the way from Arizona. Hello, Elizabeth. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Franz. Thank you. Nice to see you.
It is nice to see you, and today we're going to cover an amazing topic. As usual, that's what we do here. We're trying to help you guys. And we're still in the new year. We have all these amazing goals. And one of the goals that you might have if you are a woman and you're maybe a millennium woman and going to your 40s, you might have a goal to prioritize your health, your well being. And because this is like a period of transition. So, this episode is for you because you're gonna have hormonal changes, maybe weight gain, maybe skin problems, hot flashes, sleep, anxiety, and the fear of becoming very frail with your bones and muscles deteriorating as if this is something written in stone and has to happen. So, lots of people you hear them around saying, "Oh, I'm forgetting something, I'm getting old." They're only like 45. I get really worried. Oh, I keep falling, I keep hurting myself, I'm getting old. I don't want to do that. I fear if I fall, I'm going to break myself. And we're going to really have to snap out of this really victim, how do you say, mindset because it's not really going to be helpful. And for this reason, I have here an expert because we're going to go really deep into a crucial topic. That is the one of having good bone health, whether you are normal weight or very big weight or normal, you're even an athlete. You know, there are athletes that have been diagnosed with osteoporosis, people who go to the gym 5 times a week and they have osteoporosis. So it is something to talk about and it's very important because there are lots of myths that we have and that might bring us to have a very poor health. So because here we have an expert, we're going to dive through all this stuff and I'm going to tell you the 6 things we're going to talk about. So you know that you want to stay here all the way to the end to learn this. First thing you're going to learn is the unique bone health challenges that we have as women. Thin or fat doesn't matter. We all going to have it and it's different depending on our racial background. The second point we're going to cover is the dangers of traditional weight loss approaches that we have on bone density because we have to be very careful losing weight now. Number 3, we're going to be covering the critical role of the nutrition, all the food and non-food that you put in your body, and how important it is to have exercise in your life as a daily routine so that you can maintain or create strong bones. Remember, you can reverse osteoporosis, but we are now talking about prevention. However, if you're past 50 and you already have osteoporosis, keep listening because you can do something at any age. Number 4, we're going to talk about the impact of perimenopausal symptoms, for example, anxiety and problem with sleep, on your bone health. How is that possible? Elizabeth will tell you all this. We will also introduce HRT, which has benefit and possible risks. And is that possible to help the bones? Yes, HRT possibly can help you quite a lot because you will lose 10% of your bones in the first year. So that's quite important. And then finally, we're going to have very practical, as usual, strategies for building the bone mass, for maintaining the bone mass. And we're going to tackle the nutrition and the mindset. So we're going to really empower you with all the knowledge that you need and to close the episode knowing that you can do this. So let's start straight off. No pressure on you, Elizabeth. Nothing.
There's so much you said in there that's incredible. And I love that you started it out with the mindset and making sure that we don't have a victim mindset. I think it's so important. I do get so tired of hearing, oh, I forgot my keys, I'm getting old. I hurt myself, I'm getting old. I mean, I've got 4 kids. They forget things all the time. They're not saying because they're old. I mean, we're human beings and we're going to forget things and we're going to fall, and it doesn't mean we're old and clumsy and worthless. We're strong people who are perfectly capable of growing older with strength and grace and dignity. And these are not things that are inevitable. And so much of it is in our hands. So I feel like to just start out with saying, let's tackle this from a space of autonomy and strength and ownership over ourselves instead of
Hmm.
throwing our hands up in the air like there's nothing we can do and this is inevitable.
I'm getting old. And I really feel passionate about this because I remember my grandmother, who is now, bless her heart, in another world, but she was like 50. And she kept saying, "Oh, I can't do this. I'm old. I'm old." And I was like, I was convinced when I was 10, when you're 50, you're old. And now
That's
I'm
it.
60. I'm like, who is old here?
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah.
I
And
think,
having a good role model is so important too. So if your parents maybe weren't the best role model, it is great to go out in the world and seek out those role models of what you envision aging to be and what's possible.
right, right. It's a huge difference to really think about your life as, wow, that's my third age. That's when I'm really aware of who I am and what is good for me. And hey, if I were unhealthy up to now, if I were, or whatever, I will have to take steps to reverse some of it. And I know friends of mine who are 70, they were told they have osteoporosis, and the doctor said, don't worry, because we can do so much, and they're reversing it. That's back in England. So if it's possible, even at 70, surely at 40, we can do even more. But I really wanted to get started with this myth that thin is healthy. Oh, I'm thin, so I'm good, I'm gonna be healthy. Does that work with bone health? And I actually have here a bone, because we have deer here in Wyoming. So I have a bone for you. Look at this bone. Huh?
Gorgeous.
It's quite a thing, huh? It's quite clean. It's been in the snow for years. That's how we're made of. We have some really hard stuff in there. And it might have some little holes. I found a couple there.
Yes.
Those who can see, they can see. But this is nothing, isn't it? But we can get even worse, especially thin women. But wait, I thought that being thin like a model is incredible. Explain to me. I'm all ears. I'm listening.
Yeah, I mean, as women, we have so many advantages earlier in life that start to disappear after menopause. We have cardiovascular advantages over men. And overall, we have, better immune systems. We handle pandemics better. All of these things are really attributed to our hormones. And so in the years of perimenopause and menopause, as we are seeing our hormones decline, all of a sudden then our risks exceed men as far as cardiovascular disease goes. We have more autoimmune issues, and we're at greater risk for osteoporosis. And this is all correlated with losing hormones. And we have sort of accepted that that's just part of life and that naturally happens. Then, of course, in 2002, when the Women's Health Initiative study came out, it was a poorly drafted study and it was poorly interpreted. And so it really scared women away from hormone replacement. And so women who are in their 70s and 80s are really the
Mm,
forgotten generation. They missed
mm,
out on it. The tide is now turning. And I think that women are forging that change. So they're coming to their doctors. And if doctors were in medical school around 2002, they may be resistant to it. But I do feel like there's a change in the air where now it's becoming more acceptable. It's understood that yes, there are certain risks to HRT, but that actually most people are a candidate. It's very rare that I find a woman that I would say absolutely not. For example, a woman in their 70s or 80s with a high calcium score would be someone that I would say maybe not, because estrogen can dislodge soft plaque, which can lead to a
mm,
cardiovascular event. But
mm,
that's not a large percentage of women, and that's not the population that we're really targeting here, which is the perimenopause, early menopause. And that's, as you indicated before, you can lose about 10% bone mineral density in those late
mm.
perimenopause, early perimenopause years. It happens quickly. So if you don't stay ahead of it, it can really get away from you. You can watch your DEXA scan plummet quickly. So instead of waiting until 60 or 65 to get a DEXA scan when insurance covers it, we really want to do it in our mid 30s, 40. We don't want to be waiting until 60. We want to get a good benchmark to see where we are.
Hmm. And also, of course, here, because we are in the US, there is this thing of insurance. While in the UK, you just go to the doctor and you say, "Can I have an DEXA scan?" And you will just get it for free. So
And you
that's
can say
a good thing.
if you say to your doctor here, I have a history of osteoporosis in my family, or my mom had a hip replacement young,
Hmm.
little things like that, then insurance can
Will
cover it
cover it.
earlier if your
Mhm.
doctor says that's the case. Um,
Okay, that makes sense. And I wanted to ask something. You said the calcium
yeah, you
score.
can get your calcium measured, and again, that's something that changes quickly in perimenopause. So that's something you want to tackle in the perimenopause years, and again, not when you're 60 or 70. And estrogen plays a role in our metabolism of lipids and minerals, and everything takes a quick turn. And so that's why I'm always an advocate of saying, like, let's take a look in your 40s, even if you don't have symptoms. So of course there's hot flashes. Many women don't realize anxiety that they may be feeling for the first time is tied to lower
Hmm.
progesterone, but there are women who sail through perimenopause and menopause with the no symptoms. But bone loss, you're not going to feel. And so this is that I worry more about a woman who doesn't have symptoms and says, oh, perimenopause, menopause never affected me, because it is actually affecting your cardiovascular health, your brain health, your bone health. And those are all silent killers that we don't see unless we're testing for. And even if you don't have symptoms, your estrogen and progesterone is still declining, whether you feel it or not.
Mm. Um, does it mean that if I am a thin woman and I kind of walk or cycle, I'm still a high risk for some reason? Maybe because I'm missing the nutrients or.
Thin women are more at risk. And so women historically were really tied to measuring everything about us by our scale. I mean, it goes back for, it's probably since Twiggy, right? And then we had the WAIF models in the 90s, and women have always felt like the scale is the validator of their health and their value. The reality is we are better off going into mid and later life with a couple extra pounds. It is a nice buffer for if we get the flu, if we get pneumonia. It's good to have a few pounds as a buffer, and it also does put us at risk for osteoporosis. Um, we are, more fragile. We have typically, had a higher metabolism, potentially correlated with higher cortisol. And so you are going to typically, a Caucasian woman who tends to be thinner is going to have greater bone loss. Caucasian women, Asian women tend to have the highest. And
Mm.
also it depends on your lifestyle. If you're an over exerciser, did over cardioed and under ate a bit and didn't prioritize weights. And so many women who are currently in their 40s or 50s, they were around, in the 90s, they were definitely encouraged to undereat and do more cardio. And you really didn't hear much about weight training at that time. And so
Jane
we wanted
Fonda.
Jane Fonda. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jane Fonda was osteopenia or osteoporosis.
Wow, that's incredible. I remember, do you know why I remember this? When I was training with Marisa Peer in clinical hypnosis, that was many years ago, she was talking about she, for a certain period of time, she studied child psychology, but then she was working with Jane Fonda to do all the, fitness stuff, and I can't remember all the details, but she said she noticed that all the women in the group were anorexic, were not eating enough because they never felt they were enough. And I wonder if that generation that at the times of Twiggy and Jane Fonda, 60 to 80s, they have convinced you to be really, really thin, to be amazing. Maybe today these are the women that might be get diagnosed with osteopenia because they're terrified of putting any weight and they don't exercise. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's.
Yes. Well, yeah. And now, of course, we have Ozempic, and all the GLP-1 agonists. And so a lot of women, when they're entering into perimenopause, menopause, they are putting on weight because as we lose hormones, our metabolisms shift. And then you go back to the old ways of, well, I'll just eat less, I'll do more cardio. If that doesn't work, I'll take Ozempic. All of these things that are just making your bones more and more fragile. And the sad thing is if they were just to eat more protein and lift weights, they would feel stronger. Their nervous systems would be more balanced. There you go. Weights, 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 weights. And your your metabolic rate raises. So you would eat
Yeah.
more and be happier. There's no reason to starve yourself. And I mean, I've gained 5 pounds of muscle in the last year. And now I feel like it's an account. I have pants that don't fit, and I'm like, yes, I'm so happy. I'm strong. It's a totally different mindset.
Yeah. So being strong in the mind, and then strong in your body, which, if I may add, is an amazing, useful skill to know that you can fall and you have muscles that help you into, how do you say, cushion or cushion? Well, they help you to get very
Yeah.
much, right? And also, if you are a person that is very active and is doing a bit of weightlifting, what happens is you fall differently and you don't hurt yourself as much as a person who's very stiff, tends to be sedentary, just watching TV the whole day. When they stand up, especially with high heels, and I was there when one of my friends fell, she was 70 plus, he just stood up from a chair, but she had high heels on a slippery wooden floor, and she fell like that. Boom, straight like that, completely stiff. And luckily we had a paramedic, but she fractured the hip, and then it was one after the other, and then after a couple of years she fractured her second hip. And I'm like, wow, I never want to end up in a place like that. So really important that we learn how to fall, learn how to get back from a floor and up,
Yes.
and get all those muscles working so we're less stiff. And so, because a big thing with osteoporosis is any small fall, any small hit may cause this fracture. And once you have a fracture, and if you have a fracture in your arm, okay. But if you have a hip fracture, you could be out of a game for 6 months. And a lot of people during the first year, this is from NHS data, they die because they
Third.
are in bed, they have a lot of consequences from that, and they immobilize, everything just falls, and that's terrible. I was terrified when I saw the
It's
statistics.
Yes, and to bring context to why to care about bone health, because it's not a very sexy topic,
No.
is that over the age of 50, if you're not replacing hormones, 1 out of 2 women will experience a fracture due to bone loss. So that's half of all women. Now, that's just a fracture, it could be a wrist or an ankle.
Yeah.
And that's an indicator that you're in trouble. And then beyond that, past the age of 60, that's when your risk of hip fracture really goes up. And a third of women who get a hip fracture will pass away within that first year. And another third will never regain their independence. So we're talking nursing homes and caregivers. So
Yes.
it's a very small percentage of women then that go back to live, their regular lives. And as far as, we do want weight training. Weight and muscle is a great indicator of bone quality as well. Strong, healthy muscle. It's a good chance you're going to have strong, healthy bones as well. And also we want to incorporate things like yoga or Pilates to work on balance and dexterity so that you do have a way of catching yourselves if you're going to fall and you do have better balance. So that's definitely, we want to hit exercise from all angles. So I'm not saying that cardio is the worst thing in the world. I think that, walking is amazing, hiking up hills, we want to take care of our VO2 max and our cardiovascular health,
Mhm.
um, as well as weights, as well as yoga. So, it is a full package, but I feel like the days of the aerobics and the running and the excessive cycling, and cyclists actually have really poor bone density, especially in their neck. It's a bad position to be in. And it's a lot of cortisol and the endurance, even in with men, there's a high rate of osteoporosis in cycling men. And even though, we do think of osteoporosis more with women, as our gut healths are becoming worse as a population, it is actually increasing in men because of the rates of IBS and Crohn's and colitis,
Mm.
and they're not absorbing the nutrients in their foods, as well as getting prednisone medications. And so, yes, we want to focus on women, but if you have a man in your life with any sort of gut related issues, that's a definite red flag.
Yes. And also, it's very important to remember in places like in the UK, the sun in winter is going to do zero to you. I mean, get in the sun when you can, because that's a miracle if you have any in winter, but it's just not enough to build the amount of vitamin D and all the rest that you need for your minerals. So you have to get out of the UK to get the sun, but really, literally, you need to get those supplement. It is not just calcium. It's a lot more. The bones have like 56 minerals. There is a lot more than calcium. And make sure you get the calcium that is good for you. Some people have it from algae. I'm not here to give you nutritional information, but get yourself informed. So do what you want, but know what you're doing, as Superman Lab always said, because those minerals might be missing, especially if our diet is a little bit careless. We're not having leafy greens, we're not having the protein that we need, we're not having the fats that we need. Eventually, most people don't eat organs, so there are lots of missing bits. And eventually, we can say, "Oh, I'm healthy, I'm healthy." Then you get your DEXA scan, and they look and they say, "Well, compared to yourself when you were 20, you have lost so much here, and this is very brittle." They look at your bones and say, "You got osteopenia," and you say, "What the heck is that?" It's the first stage of osteoporosis. And that's not very nice, isn't it? It is a terrible time because you think, oh my gosh, I'm getting old. No, I was reading today of a 30-year-old woman that has osteoporosis and she goes to the gym 5 times a week. So it's really imperative maybe we look all at our Western diet and see why we have all these remote controls. We never stand up. We never use any muscles. And in the end, the muscles waste away and the bone there is reabsorbed. So it's
Well,
very important. You
and
also talked about HRT. Did you want to do a little bit more about that?
oh, I was just going to say, even if you're eating a perfect diet, our soil is just so depleted. So it's very difficult to get enough
It's
minerals from
true.
our diet. And
Very
I do
true.
like supplementing with D and K. For women taking calcium, it can get a little dicey. I like to do food sources more
Food sources.
for
Yeah, I take
calcium.
algae because I think they're a better way. But also, calcium is contained in lots of little foods in different because the molecules and these are too big and blah. There's a lot of discussions about calcium. And also, I read so many times the highest level of hip fractures is in the countries with the highest consumption of dairy. So I'm like, how is that possible? So
Yeah, and then depending on the quality of your dairy and if it's A1 or
yeah,
A2 and raw or
yeah.
not.
Are they
Um,
fermented? Is there a kefir there? It's just so much. And also nutrition is a minefield because you say something and then you go to
and other,
nutrition facts and there's opposite study. Then Harvard comes out, is that go different study, Stanford, the different study. So it's mind blowing.
yes,
And we don't want to end up with a hip replacement because if you have bone density issues, the hip replacement will do nothing because you can fall the other day and break something else. So,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
So
And yeah,
HRT will help with that, right?
and
To
HRT
rebuild.
will help with that because even if you do all of the other things right, if you're letting your hormones go by the wayside, it won't be effective. Avram Blooming, who I don't know if you've read Estrogen Matters, it's a great book, but he is a really interesting doctor who said, if you could take all the vitamin D and eat all the protein in the world, but if you're not replacing your estrogen, you're still going to have bone loss. And it's true. And the way that estrogen and progesterone work with each other with building up and breaking down bone, because you have to also break down bone to let yourself build healthy bone, the
Right.
two work together. um, you can still be lifting the weights and doing your yoga and eating your protein and taking your vitamin D and getting sunshine and all the things. you're still going to lose bone mineral density. Genetics, of course, plays a role, but regardless, with no estrogen and progesterone, you won't have it. And of course, at a certain age, we do stop producing it. Our adrenals will produce a little bit, but not enough to protect our bones, brain, heart, health of our arteries. And what I'm seeing a lot lately is that HRT is becoming more popular to talk about. It's becoming more accepted. However, I see a lot of people doing the patch and low dose estrogen, and I see them taking progesterone every night. And so when you're taking, they like to do the lowest dose possible, is what's trending. And that will take away your symptoms. So your hot flashes will go away. You'll sleep well at night, but you're not going to get your estradiol levels high enough to protect your bones. You need estradiol to be above an 80. And I see women with estradiol around 20 or 30, and they're on the patch. So that to me is the saddest thing, is a woman who is going to say, I've been taking HRT for 10 years. What do you mean I have osteoporosis?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because you weren't taking enough of it. And they'll say, well, I felt fine though. I felt like garbage. I got the patch. All of a sudden I could sleep. My hot flashes went away. So I thought I was fine,
Right.
but they weren't. And the other issue when you're taking progesterone every night, because everyone loves progesterone because you can sleep really great. But there's an interplay between the two where you need to wake up the other receptors. So estrogen helps perk up progesterone receptors and vice versa. And if you never give it a break, you just sort of flatline and you're not getting the benefits.
Right.
So there's a lot of nuance with HRT. It's great to take it, but it really finding a practitioner that you trust and knows how to measure properly is really important.
Yeah, because most practitioners will come and say, oh, but there's a study saying you're gonna have a heart attack. Or there are some people that say, oh, my mom took it and then she had a heart attack. Yeah, but what was the lifestyle? What was the diet like? Was she sedentary? Because a heart attack can happen to an athlete. You can have a correlation and causation, two different things. So it's
Exactly.
important to get as much education. One of the books that I find really interesting is from Lisa Mosconi. She's from Firenze
Yes.
in Italy. Brain
Wonderful.
Food. She's an expert, top scientist about neuroscience because she got interested in this because her own grandmother had dementia. And she said, what's going on here? But then when she talks and she went to Diaroviceo, she went to Huberman Lab to talk, and you hear her and she's like saying, yeah, but that's flow study from the Women Wellness Institute. Forget about it because they even stopped it in the middle. There's like 35 women. And they're not measuring if HRT is good for the woman. They're measuring about the cardiovascular issues and whatever. And it was never finished. What we needed is a proper quality meta study possible. Placebo, double, control, blah, 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 blind, everything, so that you can actually see the difference. But because the variety of our diets and countries is so different, it's very hard for us. So the education for me is to go to all the sources and not just the internet. Go to
Yeah.
specialists and see what happens and what could be a dosage that can help you. Lots of people are, oh, if I have that, I'm going to have cancer. My mom died of breast cancer. She never had a drop of HRT. You know what
Well,
I mean?
and estrogen's very protective of cancer because I mean,
Yeah,
just look at cancer rates, right?
indeed.
They're much lower in our years before perimenopause, and then they skyrocket. So if
Mm,
estrogen caused cancer, it would be the most prevalent among pregnant women.
exactly.
And not that
Exactly.
it doesn't ever happen to a pregnant
Yeah.
woman, it can, but it's certainly the exception and not the rule. And also in the Women's Health Initiative, they were given non-bioidentical. It was
Yeah.
synthetic estrogen. It
Yes,
wasn't
ma'am.
progesterone. It was progestin, and it was oral synthetic estrogen. So
Yeah.
estrogen should always be topical or injections.
Yeah.
Oral increases inflammatory markers and it raises rates of cardiovascular events.
Yeah.
So the whole way that they did it would just is not optimal anyway.
It's not exactly the right thing, I mean.
Right.
So,
It's apples and oranges.
yeah, most people don't go and read the study. If you actually read the study or read the critique of a study, and there are lots of them online now, You will see. And actually, if you watch the episode with Lisa Mosconi, she will tell you exactly where to look for all the studies so that you will know how to answer your doctor when he or she will tell you, oh, this is dangerous. Well, okay, here's a study. here's the data. Where is my danger? I'd rather have a 1% chance of a heart attack but live the next 50 years healthier than live miserably so that I don't have a 1% heart attack.
Absolutely. It's what do we want out of the quality of our life?
Yeah,
And this idea that we should be living in fear somehow
yeah,
for a study that just was so poorly done is ridiculous.
I know.
But
And
I do see women. I was actually talking to a, a doctor who she said she was on HRT. And I said, "Oh, how are you taking it?" And she said she takes the birth control pill. And that is not HRT. So it's interesting because there are a lot of doctors who think that giving a menopausal woman the birth control is HRT, when it's a synthetic, hormone disruptor. It completely cuts off our brain from our ovaries. Then you would never even, if you're on a birth control pill, you're not having a menstrual cycle, you're having a withdrawal bleed. So you would never even know if you're in menopause or not if you're on the pill.
yeah.
It's a complete detachment, but the pill will take away a hot flash and it will help you sleep. So a lot of doctors like to prescribe it because it'll kind of shut you up.
Hmm. I didn't know that. So there we go, women. Go and find more information. But the important part here is to know that we can make so many good decisions to reverse as much as possible this loss of the muscles, loss of energy, loss of the bones. And lots of it is mindset. Did you want to talk a little bit more about mindset before we go?
Yes, I think coming from a strength and abundance and ownership mindset is so important. I love for women to become stronger and to grow more into their own. I think that perimenopause and menopause is such an amazing time to own your own health, to own your own strength, and to stop trying to shrink yourself or mold yourself into something else. I think it's really empowering when, your kids are getting older and you can hopefully take some time to age with strength and grace and embrace it. It's really a lovely thing. It's a privilege to get to do. And I do want to also point out that bones are constantly remodeling. So I would never want anyone to think who is diagnosed with osteoporosis or osteopenia that it is somehow an insurmountable diagnosis, because our bones are constantly remodeling. So there's always a success story that can be had. And it really is just foundational eating enough protein, which is 1 gram per pound of desired body weight. And it's lifting weights ideally about 3 times a week. Doing some yoga so you have balance in case you fall to catch yourself. But it's the simple foundational stuff. But in order to seek out your motivation for that, mindset is super important. Waking up in the morning, letting yourself know you can do it. And if you're not sleeping at night, that becomes exceedingly hard. It's another reason why I love HRT, because it helps your circadian rhythm. It helps you get a good night's rest so you can wake up and say, yes, I can tackle it. I'm going to the gym. I'm going to eat that protein and I'm going to watch my bone health improve.
Right. It's a great mindset to have. And I think we also give instructions with our brain as we think, I'm going to age, I'm getting old, I'm forgetting, I'm becoming frail. But you're instructing yourself to do exactly that, because the brain has no sense of humor and no knowledge. He just sees that physically. He sees the image in the brain and will want to create to make you happy and content. So if we create instead a measure, an image of your muscles growing, your bones becoming nice and white and strong, then there will be even, a bigger help for all this huge amount of things that you're going to do, tackling the mindset, the diet, the exercise, and also think about the sleep, relaxation, and how much cortisol is there, because cortisol doesn't help anyone. So that is so good. Also, I remember it from your notes, humming and singing for the vagus nerves.
Oh,
It's
it's so huge and it's so helpful. I mean, if you are driving in the car and you're stuck in a traffic jam, put on a song and sing to it, sing out loud.
Nobody will know your secret.
You're immediately makes you feel better. Or if you're laying in bed at night and having a hard time falling asleep, just humming
Mhm.
and stimulating your vagus nerves. And there are vagal nerve stimulator devices that I do really like, but it's an expense. You don't necessarily have to spend money on a device. Humming and singing will do the trick.
It's also very good for your mood anyway, for breathing and clearing the throat. So,
It is
yeah,
amazing for your mood and your overall health. And our vagal nerve stimulation goes down as we age and go through perimenopause. Our autonomic nervous system takes a real beating, and we go into the sympathetic.
yeah,
So we tend to be more on the muscle. It is definitely something that requires an effort.
right.
So, periodically through the day, but particularly starting your day and ending your day, some healthy self-talk and a little bit of humming can really go a long way.
Right. And we add this to a routine where every day we're lifting ourselves, lifting our body from the chair, sitting down again, doing a little bit of weight lifting. Every day, lift weights. Every time you get a chance, do something. And even go to the kitchen, put your hands towards your worktop and then push and have all your weight going there. That is still helpful because you're building up that muscle. And then the mindset on everything, on your nutrition. What are you eating for? Are you eating just to pleasure your mouth, or are you eating to build up a strong body? So think about all this and think about maybe getting some more information, because this is not exhaustive. It's not even medical advice. It's just advice to look after yourself so you will have an amazing rest of your life. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. It's good. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. We're going to be putting all the links so we can see you, because we haven't said what is your title as a job?
Okay, I was an attorney, and then my kids were having some health issues, so I went back to school for nutrition. I'm a functional nutrition practitioner specializing in perimenopause, and I really go deep into gut health and hormones.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for being here. And you guys, I'm hoping that you have really enjoyed this episode, guys and girls. And if you want to ask any questions, feel free to do so by contacting Elizabeth Katzman at the addresses and links that we're going to put below. So thank you all, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.